was a shadow in the government's game. Pawn as a child with no face and no name. They stole my past to leave me cold and alone. Always searching for a place I could call home. I was lost in the dark, just a tool in the hand, till she pulled me close and helped me understand. Now the fire inside is starting to rise. I can see the truth through 1,000 lies. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read every thought in the blink of an eye. Danica, my witch, she's the magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a hellhound beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. In the dead of the night, I can hear the call. All the ghosts of my past scratching through the wall. My eyes change colors, the power has grown. With Crowley the hound, I am never alone. I used to be hollow, a man made of glass, but now I am reclaiming every year that has passed. Every memory is falling right back into place. I know every name and I remember every face. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read every thought in the blink of an eye. Danica, my witch, she's a magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a hell beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. I ain't running no more, yeah, I'm ready to fight. Gonna settle that debt in the depth of the night. They tried to break me, they tried to erase, but they can't hide the blood from the scars on my face. The veil is thin and the engine is hot. I'm taking back everything that they thought I forgot. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read every thought in the blink of an eye. Danica, my witch, she's the magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a tailhound beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. I remember it all now. Every single face, I'm calling for you in the dead of the night.
Hello everybody, my name's Henry. For those of you that don't know, for those of you that do, welcome back. Tonight I'm going to tell you about a country club these guys started. It was there in Greene County, Illinois, and these guys had a little bit of money in their pockets and actually pretty wealthy. They'd bought up some land and built a big old huge lake there. I mean, this lake was huge. They fenced it all in and they went to work. They put up shooting ranges. They even had fields around there that had sunflowers, and they'd mow rows through there for dove hunting. There was wooded areas for squirrel and deer hunting. And then they started work building cabins. Real fancy, nice little cabins. And then they had one great big huge cabin. That was where everybody would gather, and they'd sit around and swap stories and have little meetings there. And they had this place set up where it could either be all guys there, or the guys could bring their wives. In the one great big building, had a big bar and little type of restaurant, eating part in it, and big giant kitchen. They made a road all the way around that lake there, and they put blacktop down, and when they got her all done, they decided they want to keep the looky-loos out. So they put up these big, giant steel gates. Then they had a meeting there and decided that they wanted to keep the riffraff out and draw in some people like movie stars and country singers, people like that. Keep everybody else out. You had to pay big bucks to belong there. Well, they got the gate done and got everything up and running real good and had the lake stocked with nice big old giant fish. There was crappie in there, bass, bluegill, sunfish. They had several different types of catfish in there and built some nice big old docks, big fancy docks. Well, they decided that maybe they better name the place. Now this place sat way out in the boonies. So they trying to decide on names, and finally they settled on the name Woodbine. That's what they named this place, Woodbine. They even had the name put on the gate. Great big fancy letters. Well, as a kid, I can remember going by there and always wondering, well, what's beyond those gates? Because you couldn't see very far back in there. They had privacy fences all up. Keep us looky-loos out, us poor people out. They considered us white trash. Oh well, so much for that. At least we had a name now. Besides being poor, we could be called white trash too. Well, like I said, they was trying to draw in country music singers and movie stars, people like that they could hobnob with, people they thought they was on their same level because they had about the same amount of money. Well, everything started out pretty smooth. And there was a few big names that got drawn out there a time or two. Everything was going good. They was having their little gatherings out there and had them a place they get away from all the poor people like me. People like me and many others were not allowed in, so I guess they got what they wanted. They had their own little place there, and from what we could see when we go past there, it looked like it might have been a real beautiful place. Well, several big names, singers, some actors from back in the 70s went there, and you have people like Jimmy Buffett and people like that, they'd just go there maybe one time and because it was too far off the beaten path. But these guys kept it private. And every so often they'd get another country singer in that might have been playing up at the state fair or something, and somebody got word to them, hey, we'll pay you to come down here to this here big fancy club. Well, it was fancy for that area. But it wasn't no Hollywood or Nashville or Memphis. But the people like me that lived in the area and go back and forth and stuff, see it, and, well, yeah, it was fancy. Hell, none of us had anything like that. But the people that's rich, singers, movie stars, stuff like that there, it wasn't Hollywood, and it wasn't Memphis, it wasn't Nashville. But, things were going real good. They was making pretty good money on their hunts and fishing competitions there. But all that was about to change. Now, in 1974, I believe it was, is when that massacre happened not just very many miles away from there. That happened in a little farming community on the other side of the highway I was telling you about when I was up working with my uncle, working for the same farmer he did, cutting corn out of beans so I could get that mini bike. Well, a few years later, Woodbine was going good. I mean, you see big fancy cars, limousines going there, big fancy sports cars, fancy Corvettes, and big old Lincoln Continentals, all kinds of stuff. Big fancy Cadillacs. Dark tinted windows so you couldn't see the singer or actor in there. But all that was about to change. I was staying with another uncle of mine, and he didn't live far from there. So we'd take that back road so he could drink beer on the way home. Stay off the main road so the cop didn't get you. Well, we was home at his house one night, and we'd come past there, and us boys was talking about it, and my uncle. My uncle had went in there one time to do some kind of work. And so he'd seen the inside, how nice, and been in a couple of the buildings there, and he was telling us about what it looked like in there, and we was all eyes and ears. Well, hell, sounded too fancy for a poor guy, only a rich man. We was taking in all the facts. Hell, they even had a golf course there. Had 9 holes of golf you could play there. Shoot trap, dove fields, squirrel hunting, deer hunting. They even crated up pheasants. Now, if any of you knows about some of these big pheasant hunts, I'll tell you. There's places you go to and they take these pheasants, and they're not tame where they'll walk up to you and eat out of your hand. They're still wild, but they're in cages. But these places like this, these country clubs, some of them, some of these parks and stuff, will order them, and they'll bring them to them in big cages, and they'll set them in a crate. An hour before the hunt, they'll turn them pheasants loose and them quail. And that gives them time to go find a hiding spot. Then they'll turn the hunters loose out there with their dogs to shoot pheasants. So yeah, they're wild, but they're turned loose 1 hour before the hunt starts, because they won't stay in central Illinois. They just won't. They'll always travel north. Now you get up northern Illinois, right, place where I lived at one time, you'll see them up there. But down in central Illinois, they won't stay there. They'll travel north because there's something missing out of the ground that they need, so they just won't stick around here. Anyway, that's what they would do there. They would get these pheasants, turn them loose an hour before, and turn the hunters loose, and they start hunting. Things like that. Well, my uncle, he's telling us about all this here, and we're listening, and he's telling us about the great big building. It has a bar and a little eating area, and has big trophy deers hanging on the wall. Big old pheasants mounted on the wall. Big giant fish that's been called out of that lake. We're all ears, because we was all hunters and fishermen. So we was interested in this. Got telling us how the cabins, some of the cabins looked. And each one of those cabins had a number and a name. Like Walnut Inn, Chestnut Cabin, so on and so forth. You know, they all had little nicknames. Well, while I was up there staying, you'd see these big fancy cars coming in and out of there. But one night, there were some people there that was staying for either a hunt or some kind of gathering, or who knows, maybe just getting away from everything. Something tore through the big wooden privacy fence and got in. Now, we don't have bear there. There is mountain lion, there is black panthers, there's a few bobcat, but no bears or anything like that. But something tore in one night. And those cabins all had people in them. Well, they'd heard the clatter, and some people got up, flashlights shining around, trying to figure out what the fuck that noise was. Well, some of the other brave ones decided to grab a gun and go see. Maybe some person decided to break in and steal something the rich people had. So they did. Wasn't long and you heard one shot rang out and then a scream. Well, everybody headed toward the gunshot and the scream with their lights, and a couple of shots ring out. Another muffled scream. Wasn't long. There was 4 people missing after the screams and the shots. The others got scared when they come across the scuffle on the ground there and a few pieces of clothes and blood. There laid a broken gun or two. They decided whatever it was wasn't worth tangling with. They retreated back to their cabins. Well, they called the law. The law showed up after the gate. So some of them wandered out the gate, unlocked the gate, let the law in, and took them down there and showed them the broken up guns, tattered clothes, big blood spots. Then they noticed there was drag marks. They never did find the bodies. They found drag marks, or it looked like something had dragged these bodies to that busted place in the fence, that big wooden privacy fence. So the cops went back out to the gate and walked along the privacy fence till they come to the bust, and you could see where they had grabbed whatever it was after it killed somebody. It dragged them through that fence and then drag them down along the fence, way down in the wooded area. Well, there was a few people missing, so they started to follow the drag marks, and they went on down to the woods and down into a ditch, through a ditch, up a little embankment, along a wooded area, and the drags kept on going. Well, there was a draw there, had woods in between the fields, and they got so far and they see where the drag marks go back into the woods again, so they proceeded to follow it in there. They got in the ditch and started walking through the water, and all of a sudden they come to a great big huge brush pile. But the drag marks looked like they went under the brush pile, disappeared behind it. So slowly they started removing brush out of there, and what they found was a great big huge opening in the ground. It's probably a 10 by 10 hole, cave-like, went back in this embankment. Well, they shined their lights back there, and it went back and made a sharp turn. Well, they decided they'd wait till morning before they was going to venture back in there. because whatever was back in there might still be in there just waiting for them to come around the corner. So they told everybody, the ones that's still there and remaining there, if you want to leave, we'll escort you out. If you want to stay, we'd advise you to stay in the cabins, lock the doors, and keep your guns there handy. Well, a few of them decided to leave with the cops, and the others decided to stay. So they locked themselves in and got their weapons, and cops said, every couple hours we'll come by, and if you guys hear anything, just let us know. Well, the rest of the night, this creature or creatures come back. They could hear them out there outside of the fence, and then next thing you know, they started hearing them walking the grounds. Hear them stepping on leaves, and you'd hear them huffing and puffing, and you'd hear them slap on cabins like they was daring something to come out. Well, these people hunkered down like a bunch of rabbits. There ain't no way they wanted to go outside that door. None of them. This went on all night long. Cops got a call, and when they showed up, again, it was about 4:30 in the morning. These cops driving around with their spotlights around that club area. Periodically, they'd see a pair of amber-colored eyes peek out of the woods and then duck back down. Cop would stop, shine, and nothing. Then all of a sudden, behind them, they'd hear a noise, and they'd flip the light around, flip the car around, and look, and nothing. Well, sun started coming up, and the rest of those people wanted the hell out of there. They wouldn't spend another night there. The cops escorted them to town, got a hold of the owner and told him, said, until you guys figure out what this is, you might want to just kind of shut this down for a little bit, because as long as there's still activity here, whatever it is going to be coming back because it's found a food source, kind of like a bear does. Well, they bitched about it because they didn't want to lose no money, but they thought, well, maybe that's for the best. A few days had passed, and the cops are still scratching their head. They ain't sure what the hell, and they ain't dare going inside that goddamn cave. Well, these guys got tired of not having no money coming in from this business venture. So they decided to get a hold of some buddies of theirs and load for bear, and they was gonna spend the night in there, inside the big giant cabin, the place where they had the bar and the restaurant part, the eating part. They was gonna barricade themselves in there and wait for these things to show up. And they was gonna end this once and for all. They was making too much money for this thing to be closed very long. They're greedy. So their buddies showed up, and they told them what was going on and what they needed to do. And tonight, boys, instead of this sumbitch be hunting us, we're going to wait for it to show up. We're going to follow it back to wherever it goes, and we're going to kill it. Well, in theory, that might sound like a pretty good idea. But in reality, it's a totally different story. Well, they're sitting there eating and drinking and listening and waiting. And all of a sudden, they start hearing this, what they think is a creature. One. But the more they listen, the more they're noticing there ain't just one. There's several of them out there. They don't know how many, because they're afraid to open the window hatches to look, because it's circling around that big building. Scratching, pecking, turning the door handles. And these guys are all in there, standing in a big circle. That way they don't shoot each other. They figure whatever it is, or whatever they are, gets in there, they're going to shoot the hell out of it. And in theory, that sounds good. But when it comes down to the real thing, and the real time to shoot, who's going to shit and who's going to shoot? The ones that shit, they'll get killed. The ones that shoot, most definitely probably going to get killed if they miss. Because there is such a thing called buck fever. Buck fever is when you're hunting and you see a deer and it looks into your eyes and all of a sudden you get to shaking and you don't realize you're shaking and you pull off to shoot. You missed that thing by a foot and you swear up and down you hit it. But when you pull the trigger, you jerked. You jerked this far, and by the time it gets to whatever it is you're shooting at, you're off by about 3 foot. It does happen. But this thing, or things, is still going around, beat, 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 scratch, turn door handle. Now, they're hearing things climbing up the side of the building, going onto the roof. Now there's things up there walking and stomping. These guys, pretty damn scared. Can't say to blame them. But none of them shoot. They're waiting until they can see what it is. You know, is it somebody messing with them? Ain't sure. Well, they decide to go over there and so nothing climbs down the flue, the chimney of the fireplace, to build a small fire in there. That was a mistake. It was a good idea at first. They built the fire, got a nice little small fire going. Then, instead of the smoke going out the chimney, now it's filling that room and these guys are in there coughing and choking. These creatures had put something over top of the opening in the chimney. And these guys got 2 choices. One, they can stay in there and choke to death and die from smoke inhalation, or they can open the door and maybe run to some kind of safety, maybe one of the cabins or something. But these creatures are out there waiting. They done this on purpose. They literally flushed those guys out. Well, they're gagging and the smoke's filling up the room. You can't see nothing. They're feeling around, trying to make their way to the door. And trying to get to where there's fresh air, they just... what was outside wasn't going to be near as bad as that smoke, they thought. They unlocked the door and moved the big door jamb, and out the door they went one at a time, coughing and gagging and cussing and spitting. Some of them had dropped their guns, some of them still had their guns. They was too disoriented to start running. They was trying to get their breath. And this things decided now was the time to attack. And they did. Well, out of the 8 or 10 guys, only 4 of them survived. And that's only because they took and run down to that lake while the others were getting attacked. They jumped in a small boat down there, an old John boat. All it had was a bass tracker motor on it. They went out and sat in the middle of that lake. And what they witnessed was totally horrifying. There was 4 dogmen in this small pack that was killing their buddies up there. Well, they stayed out there all night long, and finally the screaming and tearing and ripping, and it ceased. And the dogmen dragged them bodies through the opening in the fence and headed down toward that old cave. Only these guys were pretty tore up because that was their buddies. And if you know anything about real buddies, I'm not talking about those fake ones, the real ones. Somebody killed a buddy, they damn well gonna pay. Well, these old boys are the same way. They went and reported it. Of course, how now you gonna make a report out on a dogman attack? Cops told him, said, we need not put this in a report. They'll put you all guys in a nut house. Even though I know we was out there and seen what was going on, we'll all be in the nut house. Let's just deal with it. Or don't. So these 4 guys sat around and next couple of days and thought about it, and they thought, fuck it. We owe our buddies to go and kill these damn things. Well, how in the hell are we going to kill the damn things? Well, we're going to be smart about it. We're going to go back there during the day, quietly, while they're sleeping. That's what they figured. They figured they hunted at nighttime, slept during the day, which nowadays we know differently, but they decided that they was going to sneak up there and put an end to this problem. Well, they decided to pick a day, and the day came. They drove up to the gate, parked, and these guys were loaded for bear. I mean, they was ready for a shootout. Had all their camouflage on, and camouflage boots and hats, and they was ready. Some of them even brought high-powered rifles. There was one guy even brought a 5-gallon can of gas and a match. Well, they started down along that fence, and they come across the skid marks where the bodies had been drugged, the blood, pieces of shirt, pieces of pants, a boot, sock. And they followed this trail of shit and the drag marks down to that little valley through the woods there. And off in the distance, they spotted that brush pile. They said, well, who's going to pull the brush away so the others can shoot? That one guy said, you know, y'all laughing at me because I've been carrying this can of gas and this book of matches. I got a better idea. Let's take this gas, pour it on that brush. Don't move the brush off, pour it on it. And then we'll lead us a trail back away from there, and everybody gets back, strike a match, throw it down that trail of gas, it'll go to that brush pile and blow them bastards, and they'll come running out. As they come out, you guys kill them. But that sounds like a better plan than pulling that brush off and the sumbitch reach out grabbing you. That's exactly what they did. The guy got up there above that cave, started pouring that gas in there, and when he got done pouring, he had about a gallon and a half, maybe 2 gallons left, so he made him a long trail. All of a sudden, he pulls that book of matches out, and he said, "You guys ready?" And they was all scattered out in a line, got their guns ready, aimed toward that hole. They threw a match. And that match is exactly what they said. It followed to that cave, hit that brush pile, and it went off like a grenade. It blew dirt, mud, all kinds of shit, because them fumes had started going back into that cave. Well, one creature come out, one big dog man, he's probably about 7, 8 foot tall. They unloaded on that poor sumbitch, and they riddled him. He lay dead up there on the edge of the field. Next dog man come running out. You could see where he'd caught fire. So he was fighting the fire and the skin that was burning on him, and they unloaded on him, cut him down. They waited for a while, and that brush burnt down. The other two didn't come out. They got up there and started moving the place right there where the brush had been burned, make sure it stepped out so it didn't get burnt, move stuff out of the way. There laid just inside 2 burned up dog men. Hair was burnt off of them, the flesh. They were dead. So these guys had a dilemma now. Do we turn these things in and lose our club? What do we do? What do you guys want to do? Let's take a vote on this. They all decided to keep quiet about it. So they come up with a plan to go get a tractor with a big bucket on it and dig a big deep hole with a backhoe. Put these dogmen in there and burn them up the rest of the way. Then cover them up. Let things die down for a while. Then they'd rebuild, restart their club again. They was all in agreement about it. They never ever told anybody. They dug a big giant hole in the cover of darkness. Nobody could see or hear about it. They put those dogmen remains in there. Then they went up to that cave with the backhoe and covered that up real nicely and destroyed all the evidence. Got rid of the pieces of clothes and stuff. Still to this day, they don't use that area over there where the cave was. And nobody really knows anymore except those guys where that cave was. It was a dogman den. Dogman had either created it or found it and used it. Now, how long they had been there, nobody knows. What made them attack overnight? Nobody will ever know that either. Because it can't be investigated anymore. It's been several years and all the evidence has been wiped away, and only those four guys know. The one cop was involved later years and involved in an accident. He died in that accident. Another one was transferred to another police department, and he died on the scene of a crime. So the thing that remained was these four guys. Now the four guys, two of them passed away of complication of being old, heart attack, stroke, whatever. The other two guys, they just couldn't live with it, and they moved off to other states. They sold that property. Some other people have it now, but it's still called Woodbine. I don't know if these new people know anything about it or not, but I see where they've cleaned the place up. The privacy fence ain't there no more, but the old gate's still there. And it is private. You don't want to get caught in there or looky-looing, but unless you stay on the road. On the road, you're okay. But everything else is private there. They do got some cabins up. You can still see the old lake. But what happened during that 2-day stretch there, only the people that passed away and the ones that moved away are the only ones that truly know. And they probably don't even know why it started or why it occurred. There ain't no rhyme or reason for it. But then again, there's lots of things in this world that we'll never have the answers to. So if you have a dogman problem, my advice, unless they're after you, don't shoot at them. There is good ones and there is bad ones. Just so happens the night these guys got attacked, they were some ones that were bad or went rogue. But in any case, a few people lost their lives that night. And these dogmen were killed and burnt and buried. Where exactly, I don't know. I do know it happened, though. So, my advice is, if you're out hunting and you see a dogman, as long as he ain't bothering you, don't raise a gun, don't shoot at him. You're just asking for trouble. But if one is coming after you, yeah, by all means, pull up and empty a gun. You may not live, but at least that son of a bitch will feel pretty sore eating you. That's the way I always looked at it. Just know this, they do exist. So, they are out there. So when you're out there hunting, mushrooming, hiking, just be aware that they'll know you're there before you know they're there. I wouldn't go to the woods without a gun. I don't. So, it's like this. They're there. Not all are bad. Not all are good. I wouldn't raise a gun unless you just have to. But if you have to, one's attacking, by all means. Whatever it takes to try to kill it. But otherwise, just walk away. But when you raise a gun up for one, whether it's good or bad, that's a challenge. It's like stomping your foot at a pit bull. Don't do it. It ain't gonna work out good for you. That is a true story. That did happen up there at Woodbine. It was just a little country club that these guys started and was wanting to make it big. It never did grow after that night, but now they just made it a private recreational place for these people that own it. I don't know if they know about the massacre or not, but it did really happen. You don't hear anything about it anymore. Nobody ever talks about it. It's just kind of like big news one day and gone the next. So that's my story for tonight. I thought I'd tell you about Woodbine because I hadn't never talked about it, but it's up there in Greene County, central Illinois, which means the middle of Illinois. For you that don't know what I'm talking about there. So I hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Leave me a message. I'll try to answer it. And tomorrow sometime I'll have my wife put up a picture of this place from outside of the road. It's called Woodbine. I don't know why they named it that. That's just the name they chose. Well, I hope you enjoyed tonight. I'll catch you on the next one. This is Henry. Good night. And everybody be safe. Thank you.